Summary: The Ministry of Time. Novel by Kaliane Bradley. Kaliane Bradley's The Ministry of Time is a genre-defying novel that masterfully blends elements of speculative fiction, historical drama, romance, and political intrigue. It presents deeply personal and philosophical exploration of identity, belonging, and the ethics of time travel. Set in near-future Britain grappling with the aftermath of climate change and government overreach, the novel follows an narrator, British-Cambodian civil servant, as she becomes entangled in the operations of the enigmatic Ministry of Time. Her role as bridge in the ministry places her in close contact with historical figures who have been extracted from their own times and brought into the 21st century. At the heart of the story is her relationship with one such expat, Commander Graham Gore, Victorian naval officer plucked from the ill-fated Franklin expedition of 1847. Introduction to the Ministry of Time. The novel's setting is an alternative near-future United Kingdom where climate change has reshaped society and the government has become increasingly secretive. The Ministry of Time is an elite and clandestine agency that specializes in bringing individuals from history, expats, into the modern world. These individuals are chosen based on various criteria, including their potential to serve governmental or scientific interests. The rationale behind this program remains ambiguous at first, and much of the novel's tension arises from the mystery surrounding the ministry's true objectives. The protagonist, an unnamed British-Cambodian civil servant, is recruited as Bridge, government-employed caretaker who is assigned to help one of these historical figures assimilate into the present day. Her task is to monitor and guide her expat while ensuring that their psychological, emotional needs are met, all while maintaining strict professional detachment. Commander Graham Gore. Man out of time. The expat assigned to the narrator is Commander Graham Gore, naval officer who was part of the 19th century Franklin expedition. Historically, Gore was presumed to have perished during the doomed Arctic voyage. However, the Ministry of Time intervenes, pulling him from the icy wilderness and bringing him into the modern era. Gore is a relic of an imperialist past, an officer conditioned by Victorian values of hierarchy and masculinity. Yet, as he adjusts to the present, he exhibits remarkable curiosity and adaptability. His perspective on the 21st century is one of both awe and bewilderment, and much of the novel's richness lies in his observations about modernity. From technological marvels to the evolution of social norms. At first, the narrator maintains professional boundaries, treating Gore as an assignment rather than a person. However, as time passes, their relationship shifts from formality to something deeper. She is drawn to his quiet dignity, his tragic past, and his attempts to reconcile the world he once knew with the one he now inhabits. Their dynamic is marked by humor, intellectual exchanges, and an undercurrent of growing intimacy. The challenges of assimilation. One novel's central themes is the struggle for belonging. Both the narrator and Gore exist at the margins of their respective societies. The narrator, woman of mixed heritage and bureaucratic system that values conformity, feels adrift in her own world. Gore, meanwhile, is literal anachronism. Man from the 19th century trying to make sense of a world utterly alien to him. Their shared sense of displacement forms the foundation of their bond. As part of his adaptation process, Gore undergoes rigorous training sessions led by government officials who teach him everything from history to contemporary etiquette. He is subjected to psychological evaluations to assess his stability and willingness to comply with the ministry's regulations. The process is grueling, and despite his outward composure, Gore struggles with the erasure of his past life. The narrator, despite her initial detachment, becomes increasingly protective of Gore. She questions the ministry's ethical practices, particularly its treatment of expats as expendable subjects rather than individuals with autonomy. Mystery and government secrecy. As the novel progresses, the narrator begins to uncover disturbing truths about the Ministry of Time. What initially seemed like a noble if experimental initiative reveals itself to be something far more sinister. The government's motivations for bringing historical figures into the present remain deliberately vague, and expats who fail to integrate successfully or quietly remove their fates unknown. There are hints that the Mint has been tampering with history in ways far beyond what is publicly acknowledged. The narrator stumbles upon classified documents suggesting that time travel is not just about recruitment but about manipulation. Some expats have been brought forward for scientific and political purposes, raising questions about free will and historical continuity. The novel's tension escalates as the narrator is forced to choose between loyalty to her job and her growing affection for Gore. She begins to suspect that he too will be discarded once the ministry deems him no longer useful. Romance across time. Though the Ministry of Time is not traditional romance, the relationship between the narrator and Gore is one of the novel's emotional cornerstones. Their connection is complex, Gore with his Victorian ideals, both fascinated and bewildered by modern expressions of affection. While the narrator is torn between professional ethics and personal desire, their attraction builds slowly, shaped by mutual respect and the shared experience of displacement. Yet there's an inherent tragedy in their bond. Gore is man out of time, and the Ministry has ultimate control over his fate. Their moments of closeness are tinged with the awareness that their time together is finite. The climax, escape, and consequences as the narrator's disillusionment with the Ministry deepens. She makes fateful decision. She cannot allow Gore to remain pawn in the government's experiments. With the help of few sympathetic colleagues, she orchestrates an escape plan. The final act of the novel is tense and gripping as Gore and the narrator attempt to evade the Ministry's surveillance. Their flight forces them to confront difficult questions. Where can a 19th century truly belong in the 21st? Can they ever be free from the reach of government that controls time itself? The ending is poignant, leaving readers with lingering questions about fate, agency, and the cost of love. Themes and reflections. The Ministry of Time explores several key themes. Time and identity. How does one retain their sense of self when removed from their historical context? Government overreach and ethics. What are the consequences of tampering with history, and who has the right to decide which lives are worth saving? Love and loss. Can a relationship that defies time and logic survive? Displacement and assimilation. The struggle to belong in an unfamiliar world, whether as an immigrant or a time traveler. Conclusion. Kaliane Bradley's The Ministry of Time is a beautifully crafted novel that blends history, romance, and speculative fiction into thought-provoking narrative. Through the relationship between the unnamed narrator and Commander Gore, the novel explores the nature of time, the fragility of human connection, and the ethical dilemmas of technological advancement. With its richly drawn characters and compelling mystery, it is a book that lingers long after the final page.